about very much, the different reproductive strategies of a generalist or a specialist. Remember that a generalist will pretty much do its thing any place it has a chance. Generalists are not very good at competing, but if you give them a clean deck, they can definitely work there. So think about your weeds. If they have a chance to sprout, they'll do fine. Think about crickets. If they have an opportunity to live there, you'll probably have a trillion by tomorrow. The point of being a generalist is given the opportunity, you can do fine. So their reproductive strategy is make a zillion babies, throw them out into the world, hopefully one of them will find a place where it can make a living. So corals, they don't even need to find a mate. Have you guys heard how coral reproduction works? Stony corals? They, some of them do shoot off polyps, but actually a lot of them just shoot off their gametes into the water. In other words, they literally either ovulate or ejaculate into the water column. The only thing that they do to raise the odds of that working is they usually do it on the same day or on the same night. I think it's the day after the full moon or the night after. Anybody know this? Has anybody ever been to a coral reproductive event?
Oh, yeah.
You would know if you had, because you come out of the water covered in, like, coral. It's really white. Sorry. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. Weeds, if your weeds go to seed, if you have like some random weeds in your yard and they get a chance to put seeds out, next year your weeds will be a field, a blanket of them. In our garden down there, our hugest problem is we have trouble catching the weeds before they go to seed during the summer. So the whole rest of the year, there will be like thousands of sprouts that come out of the dirt, and the next day, thousands more. You notice today, like we were hoeing in the rows to make sure that we can keep walking through the garden. And there's like little sprouts, like maybe 100 per square inch. Those are all weeds. Specialists, you remember, they're picky, but they're also the best at doing the job if they're given the conditions they need. The point of specializing is that one little thing you can do better than anyone else. So imagine if a specialist reaches their reproductive age, they know this is the right place to have my baby. I'm going to invest all of my energy into making a little miniature adult. Because if this place was good enough for me, I know it's good enough for them. I don't need to make a million with slim chances. I need to raise the chances as high as possible for one offspring. So humans have a specialist reproductive strategy. If you reach reproductive age and you're healthy enough to have an offspring, put all your energy into that one, you're probably in the right place for the offspring to make it.
Is that also because we're large animals? So like it would be really expensive to make like a really tiny human?
It's actually quite the opposite. If you're really large, gametes cost you nothing. Like you and me, because we're boys, assuming that we're functional, that we don't need to discuss. We make like 1 trillion sperm a day or something.
But for the women,
for the woman, there's a significant cost to reproduction. But if she could theoretically shoot the eggs into the water column like a coral, the cost of the gamete relative to body mass and caloric intake is minor. So it's not the cost themselves, it's the bigger stuff would do better as K selection. The reason that bigger stuff tends to be our selection is because it takes such a long time to reach reproductive maturity. So large things tend to have a specialist reproductive strategy, even if they're more generalist. Number 27 is one of my favorite study goals, and I have to assume that you understand international issues a little bit. But let's not talk about international issues, and let's not talk about the lives of others. We'll just focus on your own personal life. I'm not sure that you know this, but the largest group of graduating high school seniors in the history of the United States was probably 2010, might have been give or take a year or two, even up to last year. We're splitting hairs in the difference.
This year's senior class is the biggest in high school history.
So this is the biggest in Santa Barbara. In the U.S., I believe the biggest was just a couple of years ago, but most high schools, most places are right around now, give or take a couple of years. What does that mean for your chances of getting into college? What does that mean for your chances of getting a job? Consider also, wait a minute. Let me continue, please. When it comes time to get a loan to buy a house, chances are you'll have a whole bunch of people your age applying for the same loans. What are your chances of getting a loan to buy a house? Potentially less. So people in your generation, when they get out of high school, or if they make it into college, when they get out of college, compared to your parents or to your children, are you more likely to be slightly more optimistic or slightly more pessimistic? Pessimistic, right? Your chances of getting into college are a little worse, your chances of getting a job are a little worse, your chances of getting a loan in 15 years are going to be a little worse. Here's another thing. When you go to like a political rally, legalize this or outlaw that, or pro-gay marriage or anti-gay marriage or whatever, most of the people holding the signs and wearing the t-shirts and using the bumper stickers, and how old are they? Old.
Depends on what rally you go to.
You know, it kind of depends on the issue. That's a fair point. But I think a lot of people are surprised to see that even on like anti-gay marriage, the majority of the activists are young. That doesn't mean that the majority of young people dislike gay marriage. Young people tend to favor gay marriage. But the majority of activists are young, whatever the cause. Some causes have more bias. But think about it. Have any of you been told by your parents, uncles, grandparents that you can afford to be ideological and your ideology is a function of your youth? Has anybody heard this? One way or another, they're like, oh, you can afford to dream because you're young, or your ideology is so cute, but you'll understand when you're my age. There is actually some truth to that. If you tell a 20-year-old you can transform this country's society, but you'll have to risk about 10% of your income, most young people say, sure, I want to transform my society, even if it jeopardizes 10% of my income. If you ask Jose to transform society, but put at risk 10% of my income, I would say no. to say no? Like 10% is the net part of my income devoted to food. I have no other percent. I'm either paying mortgage, paying bills, buying food, and there's no percent left. This is even more so people in their later 30s and their 40s. If I had children going to college and with braces, I would probably be even more economically conservative. I need you to remember something. Young people truly are more ideological because they have way less pressures in their decision making, and they also have way less roots in their community.
Less obligation.
Less obligations. You haven't painted yourself into a corner yet. You're not rutted in a career. If you need to get a new career, who gives a crap? You're not really invested in your current career. If the economy changes and you need to move to France, most of you would probably be kind of open to that. You're not held down by your child who's finally found the right school. You're not held down by your mortgage. You're not held down by your career. Young people are much more politically active. They're much more pessimistic if they're part of a youth bulge. And so, look what happens. In a country with a whole bunch of people in their 20s, you're almost guaranteed political instability. Because you have a whole bunch of pessimistic young people that are also the most politically active and the most likely to take risks with their lives. In case you didn't know this, young people have much more risk-taking behaviors of all sorts. You're more likely to drive under the influence. You're more likely to experiment with drugs. You're more likely to have unprotected sex. You're more likely to do risk-taking sports. For all the same reasons that socially you're more likely to take chances with your new president. You're more likely to take chances with your vote. Neither good nor bad. I mean, I hope you understand the math of this. So teenagers, more likely to make risky decisions, more likely to be politically active, more likely to be pessimistic. And so, watch this funny thing. You already know that when you start development, you're about 20 years away from having a youth bulge, right? Most demographic transitions, once you've started, you're going to make more babies. So 20 years later, you're going to have more 20-year-olds. And there's a really interesting pattern. Countries which developed about 20 to 30 years ago are today the most likely to have major political instability. Because they've got all those extra young people out on the street looking for jobs, pissed that they're not going to school, willing to push some political agenda. Yeah. 60s and 70s in the U.S., right when the baby boom was all going through college, by the way. It's exactly the same thing. You know, if you want to go recruit political activists or suicide bombers or whatever you want, Bangladesh is like a good place. Because you got a bunch of 20-year-old ideologues. You can give them good ideas, bad ideas, whatever you want, but you're going to get more of them there. Anybody know when Egypt had its major burst of social development? 25 years ago. Anybody notice that Egypt has had some pretty amazing political revolutionary changes in the last couple of years? Matter of fact, much of the Middle East. Anybody know the Asian country that has gone through the most dramatic socioeconomic shifts recently? Barack Obama recently visited there.
Cambodia.
He visited Cambodia on the same trip, but I'm thinking of another one nearby.
Laos.
Myanmar.